Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me ask you something. Have you ever set an alarm for 5 hours in AM with the full intention of waking up to go for a run only to hit snooze 3 times and roll back under the covers? Yeah, me too. The gap between what we intend to do and what we actually do, that's where discipline lives or dies. But discipline isn't just about willpower. It's not about being hard on yourself. It's not a personality trait that some people are born with and others aren't. Discipline is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained not through shame, not through guilt, but through rewiring how your brain responds to discomfort, distractions, and doubt. Today, we're going to talk about how to train your brain for discipline. We'll explore 5 key practices, 5 ways you can reshape the way you think, act, and lead yourself to follow through, even when it's hard. Let's begin. Discipline without direction is punishment. It's like sprinting full speed in the wrong direction, and you burn out, frustrated, and confused, without knowing why it feels so heavy. The truth is, most people don't lack discipline. They lack clarity. They lack a reason to keep going when it gets hard. Because without purpose, discipline becomes just another burden, something you should do, something that feels like obligation. But when you have a why, a reason that moves you, fuels you, centers you, discipline becomes something else entirely. It becomes an act of love, of devotion, of alignment. We're so used to thinking of discipline as self-denial. We picture people grinding it out at 5 AM, saying no to cake at birthdays, staying late when everyone else has gone home. And yes, discipline sometimes looks like that. But underneath all of that behavior, something deeper is driving it. And it's not guilt. It's not perfectionism. It's clarity. The people who stick with hard things over the long haul are the people who know why they're doing it. Let me tell you a story. There's a woman named Sarah. She's a mother of 2, works full-time, and like most of us, she had struggled with her health for years. Sugar was her comfort, her reward, her escape. And when she told herself she needed to quit sugar, it didn't work. Not for long. She'd go a few days, maybe a week. But then life would happen. Stress, fatigue, the kids, a bad day at work, and she'd be back to the very habits she swore she'd change. That was until her doctor gave her news that hit her like a truck. Early signs of diabetes. She sat in her car after that appointment, gripped by fear, but also by something else, a vision. A picture came to mind. Her daughter, older, radiant in a white dress, smiling on her wedding day, and Sarah imagined dancing with her healthy, strong present. That image became her anchor. That image became her why. Every time she passed the cookie aisle or walked past the donuts in the office kitchen, she didn't just resist sugar. She reminded herself, I'm dancing at my daughter's wedding. And that made all the difference. It wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about being the healthiest person in the room. It was about love. It was about legacy. This is the truth most people miss. Your brain is not wired for long-term discipline unless it's connected to meaning. It's why resolutions fail, diets crash, and gym memberships collect dust by February. When we rely only on external motivation, looking good, proving something, hitting arbitrary goals, we lose steam, because surface-level reasons don't survive deep resistance. But soul-level reasons, they do. They fuel resilience. They create focus. They guide choices even when no one is watching. So the first step isn't setting goals. It's asking better questions. Not what do I want to achieve, but what deeply matters to me. Who do I want to become? What kind of future am I fighting for? Because discipline is not a punishment. It's a pathway to something bigger, something more aligned with the person you were meant to be. That's why knowing your why is not optional. It's essential. Think about it this way. When a soldier is in the middle of a battlefield, they're not thinking about how tired they are. They're thinking about who they're fighting for. When an entrepreneur pushes through failure after failure, they're not just chasing success. They're fighting for a mission. When a parent works multiple jobs to put food on the table, they're not driven by ego. They're fueled by love. And yet, when we try to build discipline in our own lives, we often ignore that emotional fuel. We try to grind, we try to push, we shame ourselves into doing better. But discipline built on shame is unsustainable. What we need is meaning, purpose, that one true north that keeps us aligned when the fog rolls in and the road gets hard. So here's the invitation. Pause, turn off the noise, step away from the to-do list, the productivity hacks, the pressure to optimize everything, and ask yourself, really ask, why does this matter to me? Not the socially acceptable answer, not the one that sounds good in a job interview or on a vision board. the real one, the raw one, the one that might make your eyes well up a little. Maybe your why is about health, but not because you want to fit into some ideal body. Maybe it's because you want to be the kind of parent who has energy after work to play catch in the yard. Maybe it's about breaking a cycle of addiction or fear or scarcity that's haunted your family for generations. Maybe it's about proving to the little version of yourself, the one who got overlooked, underestimated, laughed at, that they were always enough, that they could do hard things. Whatever it is, make it real, make it vivid, make it so honest that it scares you a little, because that's the kind of why that holds you up when your willpower gives out. That's the kind of why that doesn't quit when it's raining, when you're tired, when progress is slow. That kind of why carries you. And once you find it, write it down every day if you have to make it visible. Tape it to your bathroom mirror. Set it as your phone wallpaper. Say it out loud. Let it anchor you. Because you don't need more hacks. You need more heart, more intention, more connection between who you are and who you're becoming. Take 5 minutes today, 5 sacred minutes. Write down one reason why discipline matters in your life. Not just any reason, your reason, the one that hits you in the gut. The one that you'll still believe in when things get hard. That's where discipline begins. Not in the gym, not in the planner, not in some app. It begins in your why, because when your why is big enough, discipline isn't something you force, something you choose and choose and choose again. Not because you have to, but because you get to. Because the future you're fighting for is worth it every single time. Most people think discipline is about pushing harder, dig deeper, try more, be stronger, that if you just had enough willpower, you'd finally get up at 5 a.m., go to the gym, eat the salad instead of the fries, write the book, stick to the plan. But science and life tell a very different story, because the people who show up consistently, the ones who seem so disciplined, they're not depending on brute strength every day. They've just made fewer decisions. And the secret, it's not willpower, it's routine. Your brain isn't built to make hundreds of thoughtful choices from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Every decision costs something. It costs attention. It costs energy. It costs will. And that's why willpower is a terrible long-term strategy. It's not that you're weak, it's that you're human. Neuroscience shows us that when you do something repeatedly, the same action at the same time in the same context, your brain begins to conserve energy. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making, doesn't have to work as hard. Over time, those behaviors get pushed into your subconscious, into the basal ganglia, where habits live. And once something becomes a habit, the effort required drops dramatically. You don't have to convince yourself to do it. You just do it. Not because you're motivated, because it's now part of who you are. Think about how you brush your teeth. You don't give yourself a pep talk before walking to the sink. You don't analyze whether you feel like it today, you just do it. It's routine. Now imagine if your most important goals, the things you say matter most, could become just as automatic. That's what we're talking about. That's what a system can do. There's a phrase, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your system. And the truth of that hits hard, because goals are dreams with deadlines. They live in the future. But systems live in the present. They shape what you do today, and what you do today shapes who you become tomorrow. Imagine a man named Marcus. He wanted to become a writer. He had ideas, ambition, even talent. But every morning he'd sit at his desk and ask himself, what should I write? Or worse, do I feel like writing today? And most days the answer was no, not because he didn't care, but because he hadn't built a system. He was relying on willpower. But then he made one small shift. He created a 15-minute routine. He'd wake up, make coffee, sit at the same desk, and write a single paragraph. Not a book, not a chapter, just a paragraph. No decisions, no drama, same place, same time, same action. Within weeks, the resistance he used to feel disappeared. He didn't ask if he felt like writing. He just wrote. 1 paragraph turned into 3. 3 into 10. And eventually a book was born, not because he had superhuman discipline, but because he had a simple, repeatable system. That's how transformation works. Not in huge, explosive leaps, but in tiny, deliberate actions repeated over and over until they become identity, until they become the new normal. So why does this matter for you? Because chances are the thing you're struggling to stay consistent with is not a failure of desire. It's a failure of structure. If you're constantly battling yourself to make the right choice, that's not a sign that you're lazy. It's a sign that your environment, your calendar, your habits aren't working for you. They're working against you. And the solution isn't trying harder. It's designing smarter. Start small. That's the key. Not with a 90-minute workout or a 20-step morning ritual. Start with 10 minutes. The same time, the same location, the same cue. Give your brain the consistency it craves. Because every time you repeat a behavior in a predictable pattern, you're laying down the neural pathways that make that behavior easier next time. Repetition becomes routine. Routine becomes identity. And that's what discipline really is. Identity in motion. It's the result of who you believe you are, shaped by what you repeatedly do. So if you want to be someone who prioritizes health, create a routine around movement. If you want to be someone who leads with clarity, build a routine around reflection. If you want to be someone who creates, writes, builds, speaks, craft a daily rhythm that removes the question of whether or not you'll show up. Look at the people who seem the most consistent, the athletes, creators, leaders. They've eliminated as many unnecessary decisions as possible. They eat similar meals, they train at the same hour, they wear the same clothes. Why? Because they know that every choice they don't have to make is energy saved for the ones that matter. That's not boring, that's strategic. Think about a pilot flying a plane. They don't wake up and make random decisions about how to fly today. There's a checklist. There's a rhythm, because when stakes are high, you don't leave things to chance. You don't hope your mood aligns with your mission. You build systems so that success becomes a byproduct of your routine, not a rare event that depends on inspiration. The same can be true for your life. The habits you build today, the way you stack your mornings, protect your focus, wind down at night, those patterns are either moving you closer to the life you want or pulling you away from it. Discipline becomes easier, not because you suddenly become stronger, but because your system becomes smarter. So here's what you can do right now. Choose one small behavior tied to something important in your life. Then design a routine around it. Same time, same place, no exceptions. Give it 7 days. Don't evaluate it. Don't negotiate with yourself. Just do it. Let repetition carry you where motivation used to fail you. Because once you remove the friction of daily decision, you make space for something much more powerful to take root: consistency. And that, more than anything, is what creates results that last. Not because you gritted your teeth through every step, but because you built a rhythm strong enough to carry you through. And that rhythm, day after day, becomes the foundation of a disciplined life. Have you ever said, "I'll do it when I feel motivated"? Maybe it was about going for a run, or cleaning the house, or sitting down to write that thing you keep saying matters. Whatever it was, you waited. You waited for that spark, for motivation to show up like some long-lost friend who finally decided to knock on your door. But here's the problem. Most of the time it doesn't, and when it does, it's gone just as quickly. Let me say this plainly. Motivation is a liar. It shows up when it wants, not when you need it. It disappears when things get hard. It's not dependable. It's not consistent. And it was never meant to carry you. If you build your discipline on motivation, you will always be chasing. You'll always be starting and stopping. You'll build momentum for a moment only to watch it vanish. The second your emotions shift, because feelings are fleeting. And when your actions depend on how you feel, your results become inconsistent, fragile, and unpredictable. What matters more than how you feel is what you do. What matters is the decision you make in that critical moment. The moment between "I don't feel like it" and "I'll do it anyway." That's where real discipline is born. Not in perfect planning, not in bursts of motivation, but in choosing action before emotion. You see, we've been taught the wrong sequence. We think we need to feel motivated first, then we'll take action. But it actually works the other way around. You take action and then the feeling follows. The emotional clarity, the drive, the energy, they come after you begin, not before. This is more than just anecdotal. It's neurological. Your brain responds to behavior by shifting your emotional state. There was a study done at the University of Chicago that observed people starting exercise routines. Many of them didn't want to work out at first. They reported low motivation, but over time, something changed. Even though they still had days where they didn't feel like it, their motivation actually increased. Why? Because they were doing it. They were acting, and in doing so, they were proving something to themselves. Their brains were beginning to associate movement with progress. Their behavior shaped their identity, and that identity began to feed their motivation. It's the same way confidence works. Confidence doesn't come before the leap. It comes after. You jump, you land, and then you say, "I can do this." You don't wait until you feel brave to take the leap. You take the leap, and bravery arrives as a reward for the risk. The same principle applies to discipline. You act not because you feel like it, but because you've made a commitment, and then the feeling comes. It may not come instantly. Sometimes it shows up in the middle, sometimes not until the end. But it comes the pride of following through, the quiet satisfaction of knowing you did what you said you would, the energy that rises not from comfort but from courage. So what do you do when your emotions scream, "Not today"? You pause, you breathe, and you say, "I can feel this later. Right now, I act." This simple phrase is powerful because it acknowledges the feeling without surrendering to it. It says, "Yes, I hear you. I feel the resistance, but I am not ruled by it." It creates just enough space between stimulus and response for choice to live. And in that space, you reclaim your power. You stop letting your emotions dictate your actions. You stop letting your mood define your commitment. You start choosing alignment over comfort. There was a man named Lucas who used to wake up every morning, scroll his phone for 45 minutes, and tell himself he'd start his work as soon as he felt ready. Hours passed. He'd lose half his day before even beginning. And then he tried something different. He didn't overhaul everything. He just set a rule. The moment he sat down at his desk, he'd open his laptop and write one sentence, just one. He told himself, "I don't have to write well. I just have to begin." And that sentence led to a paragraph. The paragraph led to a page, and the page became his next book. Not because he always felt like writing, but because he stopped waiting to feel ready. This is what it means to delay emotion, not action. You don't ignore how you feel. You don't shove it down or pretend it isn't there. You simply tell yourself, "This feeling can wait. My action can't." And over time, your brain starts to shift. It starts to associate effort with results, not dread. It begins to trust that forward motion, even the smallest step, leads to clarity, to progress, to pride. You begin to train your mind to see action as a signal of self-worth. That's what this is really about. Trust. Trusting that who you want to be is forged in what you do, not how you feel. Trusting that your future self is depending on you to show up, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. So the next time you feel resistance, when your alarm goes off and the bed feels warm, when the blank page stares back at you, when your excuses are loud and your energy is low, try this. Say out loud, "I can feel this later. Right now, I act." Let that be your anchor. Let that be your reset. Because discipline is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. It's the choice to act according to what matters, not just what feels easy. And in that choice, you begin to shift everything. Not just your results, your identity, your story, your life. You are not weak. You are surrounded. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think their failure to follow through means something is wrong with them, that they don't want it badly enough, that they lack willpower, that they're somehow flawed. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the real problem is what's around you? Let's be honest. If you're trying to eat healthy, but there's a plate of warm cookies sitting on the kitchen counter every day, it doesn't matter how committed you are. Sooner or later, your environment will win. Not because you lack strength, but because you're human. Your brain is wired to take the path of least resistance. It will reach for what's easy, what's visible, what's convenient every time, and that's not a character flaw. That's a design issue. When people talk about discipline, they often imagine it as a test of inner strength, a solo battle between who you are and who you want to be. But what if it's not about fighting yourself at all? What if it's about removing the fight in the first place? That's what great design does. It makes the right thing not just possible, but natural. Behavioral scientist B.J. Fogg once said, "Environment beats willpower," and the data supports it. He teaches that small changes in your surroundings can have massive impacts on your behavior. Not because your desire shifts, but because your defaults do. When the friction to do the right thing disappears, following through doesn't feel like a battle. It feels like momentum. We see this every day. Want to stop scrolling your phone before bed? Don't try to resist the urge. Plug your phone in across the room. Suddenly, what used to be a habit gets interrupted by a moment of decision. That one small change creates just enough space to choose something better. The truth is, your environment is always influencing you, either nudging you toward the person you want to be or pulling you further away. It's never neutral. Every drawer, every shelf, every item on your calendar, every app on your phone, every conversation you allow into your day, they are all part of your behavioral landscape. And just like a river follows the shape of the land, your behavior follows the shape of your environment. There's a story about a guy named Darren who was trying to read more. He said it mattered to him. He wanted to be a more thoughtful leader, a better communicator, But at the end of each day, he'd crash on the couch, turn on Netflix, and tell himself he'd start tomorrow. This went on for weeks until one night he took a different approach. Instead of trying to force himself to read, he left his book on his pillow. That's it, simple. The next night he came into his room, saw the book, and without thinking picked it up and started reading 10 minutes, then 20. That one small tweak, placing the book in his line of sight, was enough to change everything. Why? Because it made the right choice the easy choice. And that's the goal. Discipline that depends on effort alone is exhausting. Eventually, even the most driven people burn out. But when you shift your strategy, when you build your environment to support your intention, you don't have to be a hero. You just have to show up. So think about what matters to you right now. Maybe you want to move your body more? Then lay out your workout clothes the night before. Make it so easy that there's no excuse. Want to write each morning? Schedule it like a meeting. Same time, no negotiation. Want to stop snacking at night? Don't just try to resist it. Remove the snacks from the house, or at the very least, move them out of reach. Put fruit on the counter instead. What you see, you choose. What's easy, you repeat. This isn't about being rigid. It's about being intentional. Too many people try to build discipline on top of a chaotic environment. It's like trying to run a marathon through a swamp. You don't need more hustle. You need a better path. You need a space that pulls you forward instead of holding you back. Here's something powerful to consider. The most disciplined people in the world don't make more decisions. They make fewer. They simplify their lives so they can follow through with less resistance. It's not about grinding harder. It's about designing smarter. It's about asking, how can I shape my space physically, digitally, even socially to help me succeed by default? And it's not just about your physical environment. It's about the people you surround yourself with too. If you're trying to become more focused, but you spend most of your time with people who live in constant distraction, your willpower doesn't stand a chance. But if you're around people who reflect your values, your discipline will rise almost automatically. Why? Because we become what we're exposed to. If you want to change your habits, change what surrounds you. You don't have to rely on grit every day. That's the myth. What you really need is to set up your life like an ally, not an enemy. Design your day so that making the right choice is easier than the wrong one. Create visual cues that pull you into action, schedule time for what matters, and protect it like it's sacred. Remove friction, add support, make the actions that align with your goals obvious, effortless, and rewarding. Because discipline is not just about strength, it's about strategy. And when your environment supports your intention, you no longer have to fight your way to progress. You just follow the path you've built. This one matters more than most people realize, because it's where so many of us give up. Not because we're lazy, not because we're weak, but because we hold ourselves to impossible standards. One missed day, one slip up, one skipped workout or broken streak. And we start telling ourselves a story. I failed. I'm back at zero. I just can't do this. But here's the truth. Discipline has never been about being perfect. It's about coming back. It's about how fast you can stand back up after you fall. The people who build real discipline, lasting discipline, they're not superhuman. They just refuse to quit because of one mistake. They understand something most people miss. Perfection is the enemy of consistency. And consistency, not perfection, is what rewires your identity. See, your brain doesn't need flawless execution. It needs reinforcement. The brain learns through reward. When you acknowledge progress, when you celebrate even the tiniest wins, you're not just giving yourself a gold star. You're physically rewiring your neural pathways. You're strengthening the circuit that says, this is who I am now. This is what I do. Imagine this like building a bridge. Every time you show up, even if just for 5 minutes, you're laying down another plank. Miss a day, that's okay. The bridge is still there. You haven't burned it, you just pick up where you left off. The goal isn't to build the bridge in one go. The goal is to keep adding planks, one at a time, day after day. There's a man in Ohio, let's call him David. He lost over 100 lab, not by chasing some perfect plan or strict diet, but by tracking every healthy choice on a sticky note wall. Every time he made a good decision, drank water instead of soda, took the stairs, skipped the drive-through, he wrote it down and stuck it on his bedroom wall. At first it looked insignificant, just a few notes. But after a week it was a patch. After a month it was a pattern. After 6 months it became a mosaic, a visual reminder that he was showing up, that he was becoming the kind of person who made disciplined choices. Not all the time, but more often and more easily. That wall didn't just track progress. It became the progress because every note told his brain, you're doing it, keep going. And over time, it shifted his identity from someone who wanted to change to someone who was changing. The mistake people make is waiting until they hit the finish line to celebrate. But that's not how transformation works. If you only reward outcomes, you train your brain to value results more than effort. And when results are slow, which they often are, motivation fades. But when you reward effort, when you affirm the decision to try, you keep your internal fire alive. That's why the most powerful question you can ask yourself at the end of the day isn't, did I win? It's, did I show up? Did I keep the promise I made to myself even just once? Even in a small way. Try this tonight, before your head hits the pillow. Write down one disciplined decision you made today. Just one, doesn't have to be flashy. Maybe you drank water first thing instead of reaching for your phone. Maybe you wrote one paragraph, took one walk, said no to one distraction. That's enough. Write it down. Let it count, because the act of recognizing that moment does something powerful. It tells your brain this matters. And what we affirm, we repeat. You are not training for perfection. You are training for identity. You are teaching yourself to see who you're becoming, not just what you're achieving. And that shift is everything. Because when your identity begins to align with your actions, discipline stops being a fight. It becomes a reflection. There's a reason people fall into all or nothing thinking. It feels cleaner. I'm either all in or I'm out. But that mindset kills progress. Real change is messy. It includes bad days, missed workouts, distracted mornings, and moments of weakness. And that's okay. That's human. What matters is how you respond. Will you give yourself grace? Will you acknowledge what did go well even on the days that didn't go as planned? Think of discipline like a relationship with yourself. You don't build trust by being perfect. You build it by showing up again and again. You build it by proving that even on hard days, you still care enough to try. And every time you do that, every time you celebrate showing up, you deepen that trust. That's what David did. That's what hundreds of others have done. And that's what you can do. You don't need to be perfect. You need to notice your progress. Own it. Celebrate it. Let it tell you something true, that you are becoming the kind of person who follows through. Not in theory, not in intention, but in action. So keep track of your tiny wins. Honor the decision to rise. Remind yourself that a step forward, even a small one, is still progress. That's how you keep going. That's how you turn discipline into a way of being. Not with pressure, but with proof. Proof that you're growing and becoming, and showing up even when it's hard, and that's worth celebrating. Discipline is not about being tough. It's not about gritting your teeth and pushing through no matter what. It's not about beating yourself up every time you fall short or chasing perfection like your worth depends on it. We've been sold this idea that discipline is for the strong, the relentless, the hyper-focused few who never skip a beat. But that version of discipline, it's a myth, a punishing, unsustainable myth. True discipline is much quieter. It's more compassionate. It's about clarity. It's about being honest with yourself about what matters most, and then consistently aligning your actions to reflect that truth. Not every moment of every day, but enough times to start changing your story. It's about knowing that the version of you you're becoming is already in there waiting. And being disciplined means standing up for that version even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the short-term temptation is louder than the long-term vision. Discipline is about choosing what you want most over what you want now. Not once, but over and over until that choice feels like home. And let's be honest, you don't need another motivational speech to know that discipline matters. You already know. The real question is, what are you doing with that knowing? Are you waiting to feel more ready? Are you waiting until life gets less hectic? Until you're less tired, more inspired? Stop waiting. There is no perfect time. There is no perfect version of you coming to save the day. There is only now the present you with all your imperfections standing at the edge of change. And the first step isn't about going harder. It's about going smarter. Train your brain. That's where it starts. Everything begins in the mind. The thoughts you entertain, the stories you repeat, the beliefs you reinforce, they are shaping your behavior whether you realize it or not. So take control of that inner dialogue. Begin with why. Get clear on what's truly driving you deep down. Not surface level goals, but soul level reasons. Reasons rooted in love, purpose, and meaning. When your why is powerful, your actions follow, then build your system. Don't leave your progress to chance. Discipline isn't about making heroic decisions every day. It's about designing a structure that supports your success. Routines, triggers, automation, simplify the process. Remove the friction. When your system is strong, your discipline becomes effortless. You don't rise to the level of your willpower. You fall to the level of your preparation. And when the feelings come, the doubt, the fear, the overwhelm, act anyway. That's the next layer. Act despite emotion. Discipline means moving forward before you feel like it. Because motivation is fleeting. Feelings are fickle. But action is transformation. Every time you move without waiting for the perfect emotional state, you prove something powerful to yourself. You prove that you are in charge, that you don't need to feel ready to begin, that you are the kind of person who shows up regardless. Then make sure the environment you live in supports who you want to be. Shape your space. Don't rely on self-control to make the hard choices every day. Set yourself up to succeed. Make the right thing easier. Make the wrong thing harder. Surround yourself with cues, tools, and people that reflect your values. Because you are not just a product of your choices, you're a product of your surroundings. And when your surroundings change, your behavior follows. And through it all, don't forget to notice what's working. Celebrate your wins. Progress matters. Even the tiny steps, especially the tiny steps, because those are the ones that build momentum. You're not just training your brain to act, you're training it to notice that you're acting, that you're growing, that you're becoming. Every moment you pause to acknowledge what you did right, you reinforce the identity you're building. And that identity, that shift from I'm trying to change to I am changing, is where discipline becomes natural. This is how you change your life. Not through punishment, not through guilt, but through clarity, consistency, and compassion, through small decisions made daily that align with something bigger than convenience. And every one of those decisions sends a message to your brain, to your body, to your future self that says, I'm committed, I'm becoming. I'm not perfect, but I'm in. You don't have to be flawless to be disciplined. You just have to be faithful to your vision, to your process, to the next right step in front of you. So if you've been waiting to become more disciplined, stop waiting, start leading yourself, start showing up. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Build the internal muscle. Craft the external support. Take the emotion along for the ride. But don't let it drive. Take pride in progress. Own the effort and watch who you become because of it. Because when you train your brain for discipline, you don't just change your habits. You rewrite your identity. You reshape your reality. You change your life.